All right. What's happening, Carl? How we doing today?
Oh, we're doing all right. Getting ready for Turkey Day coming up. Fills the heart of gratitude.
Yeah. Well, I think me and everybody really wants to know, are you smoking a turkey this year?
Does the Pope wear a funny hat? Uh, yeah, I think I might. Getting the green egg out, thanks to guys like you that taught me about how to smoke things in general with the barbecue situation. And I smoked one last year, and it is back by popular demand.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of split in my house. So I've got half of my family likes to smoke turkey, and I've got another half that likes a deep fried turkey. So
Mm,
guess what I'm doing?
it sounds like you're doing both, I'm guessing.
Two turkeys.
That's a lot of turkey.
Yeah, yeah, but it'll be all right. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out.
But by the way, this turkey talk is because we know it always takes people just a couple of minutes to get on, and we're giving a few minutes for people to log in. We'll get to the webinar shortly.
Yeah, that's right. We're just now 2 minutes over. Thanks for pointing that out, Carl. You're right. I still see a couple of people coming in, so we're going to give it just a few minutes here, and then we'll kind of get started. And in the meantime, you get to listen to Carl and I talk about
Smoking
Thanksgiving, which is depending on when you watch this. If you're watching a recording of it, Thanksgiving is next week, and so we're talking turkey and how we're going to deep fry and smoke some turkeys on some big green eggs. So should be a lot of fun. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, everybody talks about the Traegers, and I think they're awesome. But man, there's nothing quite like that actual charcoal on one of those Komodo style grills, like the Big Green Egg.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with those easy bake ovens.
Yeah, they're a lot more IT centric because you have apps to run them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So,
I wonder if those SaaS apps for the Traeger are well protected and secure.
oh, that's a good question. Good question. So, all right. Well, it looks like we're about 3 minutes over. Why don't we go ahead and kind of kick this off and get started? Welcome everybody. Uh, as always, my name is Sean Brown. I'm the president here at SnapTech, and I am joined by my good buddy, Mr. Bickmore. Carl, how we doing?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks, Sean. I'm out here in the Phoenix office for SnapTech and Sean's my East Coast buddy out in that North Atlanta area, and we're excited to share a little bit about some Microsoft Teams and something that can kind of be overlooked with Microsoft Teams, and that's the nature of the security of it, as well as maybe some things about how you could use it if you're not, or you haven't dug in too deep in something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great kind of lead in. Just a little bit of housekeeping real quick. We are recording this, and so for those people that are here live, you get to listen to us, banter live, and for those that couldn't make it for whatever reason, we'll record it and get it out to everybody. There is a section here where you can ask questions. So if you have questions along the way, I'll be kind of monitoring that. So please feel free to drop in any kind of questions that you have. And Carl and I will do our best to answer those questions for you. All right. So you want to kind of kick us off and tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, Carl?
Well, sure. I think that with the way technologies come along and the ubiquity, the general availability of high-speed internet, the workplace has changed significantly. And we've seen some really interesting new collaboration and communication tools come on board. And just like any tool, they have double-edged swords. They can be good and they can be bad. They can provide all sorts of great new efficiency and also provide new risks that maybe you didn't consider. And so today we're talking about one of those new tools, not exactly like just yesterday new. It's actually been around for a little while, but a lot of companies with the need for remote work and better communication are looking at tools like Microsoft Teams. which I'll just say out of the gates, we highly recommend. As much as we want to talk about security and risk and things like this, it's a great tool. It's a great way to improve communication and collaboration in your workplace.
Yeah, I mean, I think a majority of our team spends pretty much all day in Microsoft Teams in, one form or another, whether it's, and maybe we'll dig into a little bit of these topics, whether it's actually business work that we're doing and communicating on, clients and things that are going on, or if it's just some fun that we're having. People
Right,
are
we
in
do
this tool all day long. Yeah.
Look, we tried it. Well, that's a really great point about how you can use it because, you can emphasize your culture and people can talk the way they talk. I mean, it's like a social feed sometimes. And we have certain chats set aside for those kind of conversations where people can just spend time getting to know each other, things you would jaw about in person, but maybe that person is in your Atlanta office and the other side is in our San Francisco office. It adds a whole new element of being able to co-work or to collaborate.
Yeah. So Teams is like the modern day water cooler, is what you're telling me.
There's an element of that, and in my mind, it's the number one way to tame your email as well. Because if you're doing this stuff over email, it's just so much more difficult to communicate real time or in a reasonable thread.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump in a little bit closer and take a look here at just Microsoft Teams. You want to just kind of touch a little bit about what some of the functionality is, and maybe we can kind of kick around some ideas around how we use Teams and some of these different
Sure. Yeah.
features or functionality that we're kind of talking about.
Well, this first one on the list here, persistent workplace chat. Okay, what does that mean, right? It's like that's kind of a lingo speak. I mean, look, when you send an email to say 10 people because you want to talk about something, you're sending a fire and forget, right? And then you might get 3 that see it right away and respond, and then somebody that sees it 2 hours later and then responds, and then another person that just sees the response and just replies to that and didn't read the original message. And you get a lot of this swiping. And then you have like 4 people that never saw it, that never engaged. And you get this scenario where it's just a very disjointed, hard to follow thread. And so we're talking about persistent workplace chat. You can open up chats ad hoc or in teams or groups, and you can follow the thread easily and they stay available so you can constantly catch yourself up when necessary, or you can chime in and know the context of where you're joining the conversation. It's so much easier that way. Not to mention, it's a lot more real time typically. People will typically respond to that like they respond to texts instead of like the way they typically respond to emails.
So give me an example. So I know you and I communicate via chat all the time inside Microsoft Teams. How about another example give me a real world example of how this is being used.
Well, we have a tool integrated with Teams where people give each other bonuses and shout outs. Like we give everybody a budget, and Teams is one of the places that shows up that people can see it. We also have an alerts and outages or company-wide emergency channel where we post there and everybody knows this is very important. Everybody needs to look at this right now. We have departmental meetings that come back to Teams chats and Teams video conferences, which is the next one, video meetings, that can link to the chat and the meeting itself. In some ways it's like Zoom in that sense that you might know, and that you can totally do video meetings where some people call in and some people are on the phone in an app, some people on a computer, Mac, PC, any of that kind of stuff. It works great. And so some real ways, well, we do company announcements. We send individual one-on-one chats that are very much like a text message, but it's now in the company's data and in the company's security and easily recorded and logged if you choose to set it up that way. As opposed to free-forming in other apps that is in some other company's hand or your cell phone provider's hand,
I can tell you, I use it all the time just to, send a quick message or ask a quick question to someone or, hey, what are you doing for lunch today? Kind of deal. So those are just a couple of ways that I personally use it.
Well, a lot of times they might be even on the phone, but you could get a quick answer from them if you shoot them a quick Teams chat,
That's right. So speaking of kind of phone and the new version of a phone, which is kind of video. So tell me about video and you know, how we use video inside our company.
Well, look, because we have people at multiple locations, it's not practical for us to think every meeting everybody's going to be in the same room. Or even with customers, if we're going to hold a meeting with a customer, sometimes the customer is traveling, but we can still hold that meeting. This is very much like the concept of how you hold Zoom meetings. However, it's just kind of included with this product. So you could do video meetings. You can schedule it right in your calendar and Outlook and just click a button that says, make this a Teams meeting. And then people get the link and they just click and show up. And here you have video transfer. It's easy to share a screen with a PowerPoint on it or to show files or folders. It's actually really straightforward to do, easily done from a mobile device or a computer. We also have our conference rooms set up as Teams rooms with the device in there. We can just walk in and see the Teams room that's scheduled for it, hit a button, and it's up on the screen in the conference room, and the mics and the camera and the computer, all the screens are all set up for it. It's a very quick, easy way for us to hold a company meeting. And so, on a daily basis, like our service team will do a huddle, and it will be conducted by Shane from our Atlanta office, but it'll incorporate people at all three of our locations and people that might be working remote that day, with all seamlessly and easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is an area of this product that we use extensively, every single day. We're always, I would much rather communicate over video just to see that facial expression. And I'm a visual guy anyway, so, hopefully, hopefully people like seeing this ugly mug because I like seeing their faces as well. So, all right. So how about my next one here? Just kind of.
Yeah, it's the next best thing to being in person. In person, I think is always the best way to get nonverbal communication, but video is the next. Yeah, the next one, file and storage collaboration, right? Well, so that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. And this is where a lot of like the security conversation comes in. But inside of every Teams group that you set up or chat, you can drag and drop files in there. You can share them with each other. You can share recordings of the meeting and they'll sit in that area too. Fundamentally on the back end, what Microsoft is doing is like the Teams licensing just comes with your Office 365. If you're using that, this is already paid and usable for you. But along with that also comes cloud storage inside of their SharePoint system, which sometimes you'll see it labeled as OneDrive for Business. And it operates as just an ability to sync and send files back and forth and collaborate over that as well. And every Teams chat or channel has a SharePoint place for files to be stored. And so this can be an easy way that you can open a file that multiple people can look at and work at the same time. Maybe there's a spreadsheet or document, or just a place that everybody knows, okay, with that team, this is the project we're working on, and that's the files for that. But of course, a really big note to know about Office 365 or even Google Workspace works this way too. They don't natively back it up from the Microsoft standpoint of Teams or Office 365 in general, including your mailbox or your SharePoint data. So you do need to get a third-party backup in addition if you'd like to make sure that you can retrieve a file that's been long time deleted or a mailbox that got deleted or something like that. So just remember, just because you can now have this place to store these files, which is an easy way to get to, easy way to collaborate, doesn't mean that you've done everything that you need to do to make it secure and safe in all the ways, which is really a lot of the message of this webinar in general. Like, look, you can store files there, but what does that mean now that there are files there that could be customer information, secure information? And so how do you make sure that that's secure as well?
Perfect.
But yeah, the ease of use is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from a practical standpoint, I'll tell you, we have a Teams channel set up for our sales team, for example, and one of the documents that our team constantly refers to, we just have as a file there in the team. That makes it really easy to click on and access, from anywhere that you're at. So, just a practical way that we're using it. How about this application integration?
Well, I think this is the key of how you make Teams work in many, many other ways. Like if you have an application that can fire off an email to tell you something or has written an integration to Teams, which I think there are hundreds of them now, you can do all sorts of cool automatic things. I made a light reference. We use a tool internally to give that, like I said, budgets and shout outs. So every employee the first of the month gets X amount of points and they can give people shout outs. That tool is a third party tool, but it has a Teams integration, right? So people can just do it right from Teams, and they're still using that tool, which, by the way, if you're interested, it happens to be bonusly. It's a pretty cool cultural building tool that we found and really have enjoyed. But the Teams integration on it's solid. There are way many other Teams integrations you can do too, with document files or other cloud services. You can even embed just other web pages for whatever into Teams. Its integration power is very strong, and it means it can really become a place that's the hub for how you get to really anything that you do.
Okay, I'm going to go off script for a minute, so bear with me, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this team, our Teams, I'm going to pull it over here, and basically all I did was click on this app section, and you can start scrolling and seeing just all kinds. In fact, here's the one that Carl was just mentioning, but you can see all of the different types of applications. There's a Starbucks. I haven't seen this yet.
But if people know Sean, you'll know that there aren't many mornings Sean doesn't hit the Starbucks in some way. So maybe this is an automated way to get that order in. I don't know. We'll see.
No, I need to check this this app out and see what I can do with Starbucks. Maybe I can just automate my coffee every morning. But, and all joking aside, you can see as I just kind of scroll down through, and these are just, just a sample of the different kind of applications that integrate with Microsoft Teams that you can plug in and kind of use. So a lot of cool stuff, including apparently Starbucks. All right, got to check that out. All right, how about our next one here? This enables full collaboration with remote and on-site teams. Then we kind of touched on this a little bit, but
I mean, it works anywhere. It works on Macs, it works on PCs, it works on Android phones, it works on Apple devices like iPhones and iPads. It's because of that, you can collaborate in any way you like. You can hold meetings over it. You can hold video calls. You can have chats with each other. You can file share between you. You can open up files together at the same time and work on them, edit them together. You can interact in so many ways through that system, kind of no matter where you are, as long as you have a connection to the internet. And so that's the, could be people working from home. And look, the biggest adoption of Microsoft Teams came during the COVID pandemic, no doubt. Suddenly people are like, oh man, avoiding this collaboration has been fine, but now that everybody's remote, we just need a tool to help us with it. So many people jumped on it during then, but it's going to continue. So if you're not on it yet, you really probably ought to look at this. We highly recommend it.
I'll tell you, speaking of just kind of full collaboration, a lot of times, I will start a meeting, a Teams meeting on my phone. And then whenever I get back to the office, I log into my computer, it'll ask, hey, do you want to transfer your current meeting that you are doing on your cell phone to your desktop application? And there's a seamless transition that happens. It's really cool. And you can go both ways. And so
in reverse, like I'm in the meeting, but I got to get on the road, but I don't want to hang up. Get it on your phone, transfer a device, and you're off and rolling.
That's right. And then, lastly, for the most part, this is just included in all your Office 365 licensing. So,
no extra.
If you're not using it, you probably are licensed for it. Ask for some help. Okay. So speaking of kind of behind the scenes, and this little diagram almost looks like a flux capacitor. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's kind of happening behind the scenes?
Sure. I think the point of this is just understanding that Teams is an app, but it's actually integrating with the Microsoft Cloud platform, the Office 365, the Microsoft 365. And so it's tightly integrated with the email system that comes with Office 365, the OneDrive or the SharePoint storage, the Azure Active Directory setup that controls usernames and passwords and logins. And then there's collaboration data just in general. So all these pieces are actually things that Teams works with. Teams is not really completely best thought of as a standalone application. It's interacting with this whole cloud suite is a way of putting it. And because of that, that's really where the complexity or the security piece can really become a thing. Because to secure Teams, you need to also secure OneDrive and Azure and Office 365 and other areas that are inside of it. But that also is nice too, because that also means that if you're doing a good job of securing your Office 365, you're probably already doing a good job of securing your Microsoft Teams, right?
Yeah.
Because they do very much go hand in hand.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool things you can do to kind of harden Office 365 around conditional access and country blocking and some things like that. So if you're not implementing any of that stuff, those are good things. Hit us up. We're happy to kind of, share our thoughts on that. But
well, interesting insight on that, Sean. Look, we do a lot of assessments of companies who want to know the security posture for their IT systems. And when we look at Office 365 for small businesses, I have yet to see one that has meaningful security set up on their Office 365. Yep. And it's a big risk point because people don't realize, oh, I've subscribed to it. Microsoft says it's secure, so it's secure. The reality of it is by default, it's actually wide open, pretty insecure, but it is completely capable of being secured. However, I would say that it's still unfortunate that it takes a reasonable amount of expertise to do that. It's not something I think a layperson can easily get in and meaningfully set up the correct security on their Office 365. It does require some guys with propeller hats on, nerds, to dig in a little bit and do that. That's just a normal part of our assessment. People just have no idea how much the risk is in their email per se, but it also applies to Teams in very much the same way. In fact, in some ways, even more risky than email because of the nature of the real time and how it can do video sharing and screen sharing and the integrations everywhere. So at least it's the same or worse, Yeah.
So seeing this kind of diagram just kind of reminds me of some of the integration. And so again, I'm going to go off script and I'm going to grab a calendar invite. I'm going to show just real quick how easy this is. So this is
we need to set up a meeting with me.
We're going to do a meeting with if I can spell Carl correctly, we're going to do a meeting with Carl, and then you can see this Teams button here. All I got to do is click it, and it drops in all of the meeting contact information we need to come join this, along with a phone number and PIN in case you have that option turned on. And then we'll just add Carl to it here, and we'll send it. And that's as easy as it is to set up a Teams meeting here inside. So just another quick kind of demo example of kind of how we're leveraging Teams and what you can do with that. So honestly, how easy that integration is. So like everything, we were kind of touching on this a minute ago, but there are security risks with Teams as well. So we have to make sure that we're securing this just like the rest of our Office kind of 365 platform. So tell us a little bit about this.
Just like any software, I feel like, it's the same kind of things. Like one is there's your user behavior you have to be considered on. Like, are users inviting external guests to your Teams chat, like a vendor or a client or their best friend just for fun, or who knows what else? You have to control, whether they can even do that to begin with. But secondarily, the stat here is 45% of teams are sending confidential and sensitive frequently via Teams. As recorded by Hornet Security in a study that they did. 45% is a pretty big number. That means that you have sensitive data out there that needs to be secured. You could say, hey, it's just water cooler chat, who cares? The reality of it is the users are typically actually sending important data and conversations through that does need to be protected and secured, and you would not want to get publicly available or have easily exploited. Not to mention the next one says early threat actors using chats would join them and circulate executable files or program files to distribute malware. And so like, look, you could, I got in this chat just delivered a file, just like an email attachment or whatever, and it has the same exact risk if you don't know who it's from and it comes in. Now, most teams are not set up so just anybody can send you anything, but they can be. Sometimes a lot of email Teams chats are set up with an email, so you can send an email to it and it will show up in the chat. Well, that could contain anything that a bad email could contain, as an example. And so there's just a risk point there to make sure you understand. And just like other applications, the third point here talks about there's a vulnerability that gave this some local remote access. Lots of applications have vulnerabilities that are discovered that then become patched later, but nonetheless, you have to be concerned with the fact that it's a new application that can have vulnerabilities that might give access in ways that you did not want.
Yeah. So here was a story or a use case that I heard about, Teams just last week. Assuming that you don't have multi-factor or two-factor authentication set up into your Office 365, which we highly recommend everybody does. Assuming you don't have that, I can go log into Microsoft Teams from anywhere. And if my account were to ever get compromised and I didn't have 2FA, anybody could log in to my Teams account as me. And you can no longer send an exe file through Outlook and through email. However, you can send an exe file. So an attacker that gains access to your account can easily post an exe file that an end user could execute, which is yet another reason why it's very important that we lock down and make sure we're taking security seriously and making sure we've got 2FA and some of these conditional access and some of these other things kind of configured correctly inside our Office kind of platform to make sure that we're mitigating that risk.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
All right. So how about some security tips? What are some of the things that we should be thinking about as it relates to Teams here?
Well, one thing I would say for my compliance-based friends is Microsoft provides a lot of things that allows you to log and control access that are really just top-notch and excellent. There even is a version that you can get involved with Microsoft that's a GovCloud version, or as they call it, GCC, and variations on that. So that could be something that's important for your business. But whether that is or isn't, Microsoft actually provides a very robust security system setup that you can do for Teams. So here are the major things that I think any user can think about is one is, hey, are you really managing permissions, or is every team set up so that everybody can see everything that's being said in that team? And are you limiting guest activity? Can people just add anybody whenever they want as a guest into your teams? Or is there a different process? Or look, a lot of companies say, you know what, this is great, but we actually don't need to add any guests into our team system. By the way, you don't have to be a guest to participate in a Teams meeting. So you can have anybody be in a Teams meeting and still not allow guests into your chats persistently with their own account and login.
Good point.
And so you can really limit it. And for the most part, there's not a lot of call for guests. So maybe just turn that off. Monitor user activity for sensitive information transfer. Look, there's some settings you can do with security tools that will monitor for this, things that we set up to automate. Hey, this I think was just sent. You can configure your Office 365 with what's called DLP, data loss prevention, that will look for certain types. Like that's a social security number, that's a credit card number, I'm going to block this. You can put monitoring in place to look to see if that stuff's going on. I think one of the critical things of security in general, and this applies to email, this applies to general computers, but Teams as well, which is implement awareness training. These are like, short videos and tips, and even sometimes quizzes that you make your team take in order to make sure that they understand the risks involved and they know what's possible. Because we're telling you here today, but who at your office has no idea about this, right? The other thing is, it's like when you're building out your Teams infrastructure on the back end, you can build it through security groups that restrict who can see what in what team or who can do what in what teams. And that's just a general good best practice, and it applies to Teams as well. The nice thing is if you've already got security built for your company in general through Active Directory or Azure Active Directory and synchronize those things, is you probably can use existing security groups as your team security as well, as long as you build your teams along the same lines of the same groups. Or you can do it differently, but just pay attention and use security as you go. And then Microsoft has some add-ons that you can either pay for separately, or in a lot of common licensing, they include something called Advanced Threat Protection, or now called Microsoft Defender, for the Office 365 environment, which has some really great additional security configurations that help you with logging, that help you with blocking logins from certain countries. They help you turning on the MFA. They help you with things called safe links and safe URLs, where you get views and security restrictions on attachments and web links that are being sent. and you get just a slew of other things that you can do. So there's this add-on that Microsoft charges a little extra for, or may be included in existing licensing, that adds a lot to your ability to secure Microsoft Teams. As long as you buy it, apply it to each user, and then actually configure. Because, you know, we do see sometimes people buy it but never assign it to any user, or they buy it and assign it but never actually configure it, and it's still not doing anything.
Right, right. All right. So how about some best practice tips?
Well, so I made reference to one of these before. I think one of the bigger surprises for people is they start to realize, oh man, there really is a lot of data flying around in our teams in those chats or in the shared OneDrive or SharePoint data. And just be aware that it's inexpensive, it's easy to set up, but you really need a third-party backup to ensure that data is in fact being backed up in a way that you can recover it even after it's deleted from Microsoft, because Microsoft does not provide a long-term backup solution for any data in Office 365. You have to buy that separately, at least when it comes to email and Teams and SharePoint, OneDrive, all those kind of things. We've been already harping on this, but making use of multi-factor authentication. This is true for anything that's out there publicly. Like if you need to remote into work things, you should have multi-factor authentication. And if you don't know what that means, it's you put in your username and then your first factor is your password. And then your second factor is something else like a text code, or you open an app and there's a code there, or you open your app and you can use biometrics to approve it. There's a few different ways the second part of the multi-factor can be done, but you're using more than just your username and password, because unfortunately, you know, an 8-character, very complex password, which is what a lot of security standards are out there, can be cracked in about 37 seconds, I think is the statistic. It is not difficult anymore to crack passwords that a lot of people are using. So you either got to have a much, much longer password to avoid a password crack, or you need to also have multi-factor authentication. And to be perfectly frank, you should just always have multi-factor authentication on anything cloud-based or anything you can get to from anywhere. And so that very much applies to Microsoft Teams.
So does that mean I got to stop using password exclamation?
Password 123 with a capital P. But it's next quarter, so let's make it 1, 2, 3, 4.
5. How about this? How about this bottom section here? And so just a little bit about structure. How do people need to help me understand? You know, we all know what Teams is, but for someone that's like brand new, that doesn't understand this kind of concept of creating kind of team structures, how should I think about what should I create? How should I lay this out?
Yeah, well, look, one of the great lines to think about is structure based on security. Security is always driven by your job responsibilities or the department that you work in. You might think of like, hey, on my old server, I've got the S drive for sales, and I've got the H drive for personal files, and I got the M drive for accounting files. Well, a lot of times if you have departments like that with security lines, that's probably a great way to build your Teams groups, is in those departments. But then you also probably want to include some overall things like a all company group that everybody can chat, and you do one announcement there that everybody gets. You probably could really use some geographical based ones as well. Like for us, we have ongoing chats for Atlanta, Phoenix, and San Francisco. So if we need to send something out that's to everybody that just pertains to that one geography, we can have a Teams built for that. You can also build teams or even channels within Teams for even bespoke projects or major initiatives that you might have. But for us, like the departments that we have is kind of a bare minimum. And also any department or group that holds a meeting on a regular basis, we're typically going to set up a Teams channel for, and then we're going to schedule regular recurring meetings using that Teams channel. And it makes it very easy for people to get to and know the context of the conversation.
All right, so I'm visual. And so I'm going to go off script again here. I'm just going to grab Teams and drag it over. So this is kind of an example of our team environment. You kind of see kind of what Carl was describing. We've got some alerts. We've got our service desk, our sales, executive team. Here's the all staff that he was talking about. Marketing has one, R&D, business development, leadership. Of course,
I like how you
back
strategically
office.
show our fantasy football lead as the one that
I
you can
mean,
actually.
you got to have a fantasy football teams channel. And then all, some of our other kind of, channels are kind of down through here. So, but from a
Project
visual
based.
standpoint, if you're interested, this is kind of how we lay out, our environment and what we do. And you can kind of
Well, and
see some
without
of the,
showing the detail of our all staff one, you could hit the drop down and probably see the channels we have underneath that are different areas, like general client communications, client temperature, overall well-being, social communications. Like when people are giving each other shout outs and bonusly, it posts into the social communications one, so that people can,
boom.
yeah, there we go. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's just an example of kind of how we've organized and kind of structured ours. Just, if you're visual like me and you want to kind of get a sample of what that looks like, that's how we've done ours.
Well, so the other thing in the lower right-hand corner was just a quick call to action. If you've learned something new or you're interested in finding out more about the security of your teams, we do offer a no-cost rapid security snapshot. It's a quick call where we'll kind of go over some questions and find out what you know and kind of give you some thoughts specifically on how you answer those questions. And then maybe that even leads into an actual examination of your Microsoft Teams if you're interested in a formal assessment like that. But we're happy to give you some additional thoughts and spend some one-on-one time answering questions or posing a few questions that might help you understand what next steps you should take around this.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking at our attendee questions. I guess, you and I have done such a great job of kind of explaining Microsoft Teams. I don't see any questions here. So
Okay.
we've got some shy people in the audience, apparently, and that's okay. It happens. And, honestly, I think we're about at time anyway. So good content. Thanks for hanging out. Couple of announcements just to kind of keep an eye out. If you are in the Atlanta market, we've got a live event that we're doing on December the 8th at the 1818 Club in Duluth. It's going to be this awesome kind of cybersecurity kind of roundtable where we've got one of our clients coming in and we're going to talk about their journey to the cloud, some security stuff, and their remote workforce and how they're kind of managing having people outside their office from an operational standpoint and also from a security standpoint. And then we've got our next kind of webinar coming up December 15th, 2:00 again, educational webinar on Ignite and this cloud-based file sharing solution. Really cool. So
yeah, I mean, I think that the maybe the teaser on Ignite is, hey, what if it was possible to no longer have that server sharing your files, but it was easy to get to anywhere, your computer, your phone, any device, share with clients and vendors, but all with great security and control. That's the big.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for this webinar. As always, you can check out the rest of our educational material out on our website in our resource section. And Carl, if I don't see you again before Thanksgiving, good luck smoking that turkey. I will take you pictures of my smoked turkey and my deep fried turkey.
Yeah, follow me on social media. You might see a picture of it,
Oh, that's a good, yeah. Find me. I'm on Facebook and everything else. So we'll throw some pictures of our turkeys out there. So, all right. Until next time, we'll see you later. Take care.